Hi, this is Francisco Bijan from vitalcoaching.com, and we are talking about spiritual power. The next topic I would like to cover is from Tamas to Rajas in 60 seconds. For those of you who are not familiar with the terms, Tamas basically means a state of heaviness. When you are, feeling really low in energy, basically your level of energy is lower than average and you feel quite heavy. And this is being in tamas. That's the first state of energy. Then you have a second state of energy, which is a state of brightness, simply a state of peace. And this one is called sattvas. And then you have a third state of energy, which is called rajas. Rajas literally means fire. So once you understand these different states of energy, you want also to be able to shift from one to the other at will. This is really about mastering your energy level inside of you. So the question that we are going to check now is when you feel heavy, literally, for instance, you have been oversleeping, or you wake up in the morning and you are low in energy, or you have been watching TV, or you have been inside the whole day, and there are dozens of situations where you can feel low in energy. And what I want to check with you is a couple of very simple strategies that you can apply to shift your energy state and go from low or heavy to fiery and excited state. So when we do that, you go really from tamas to rajas, back to a high state of energy. And these techniques are very effective, they are very direct, but they are a bit challenging because they require you to go beyond your comfort zone. So the first technique is very simple, a cold shower. I mean, this is very direct, and you will notice that as soon as you take a cold shower, you shift your energy level straight away from tamas to rajas, if you want to, if you are in a tamasic state. That's the first strategy. The second strategy is to do some dynamic breathing technique. Now, you have different ways of doing a dynamic breathing technique. If you have been practicing yoga, probably you are familiar with this. One of them is simply to breathe in via the nose and breathe out through your mouth. So it sounds like this. Of course, you can do exactly the same technique with breathing in via the mouth and breathing out via the mouth as well. So it will sound like. And then you have another one, which is breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose. This is practiced by some Kundalini yogis, and it will sound like. Okay, so once you practice this, maybe for a minute or so, you will notice that very often when you practice this and you are not used to this technique, you will start feeling a little bit dizzy in the head. So that's okay. If you feel that, simply stop and breathe normally until you recover. You come back to a natural, normal state of balance. So these are two techniques. A third thing to do is really to open the windows and get some fresh air. This is a bit slower. I mean, it will not have the same kind of impact, but it will definitely create a shift. If you have the TV on, turn it off and stop watching it. And here are a couple of extra techniques that you can apply if you don't want to go into tamas. One of the first reasons why you would go into tamas is when you overeat. Literally, if you have a heavy lunch, for instance, most of the afternoon will be spent digesting what you did eat, and this is not very good. So if you are in a state where you feel you had a heavy lunch and in the afternoon you feel really heavy, the first thing you have to do is the following day don't have a heavy lunch. Go for something lighter, a salad, some fruit, something which is going to keep you awake the afternoon, especially if you have to work in an office or something like that. The second, as a general strategy, one very important thing if you don't want to go into tamas is really to keep to very light meals and eat food which is really energizing. Very often raw food like fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, these kind of things. This will really keep you in a sattvic space. Sattvic state, which is a state of awakening and brightness, internal brightness. Let me think. There are a couple of other important things in terms of how to maintain, a healthy and bright energy state. You will notice also that if you are used to meditation, for instance, if you meditate regularly, most of the times what you need to do when you want to shift from tamas to rajas is use some exercise, use some dynamic techniques rather than sitting back and going into internal meditation. Internal meditation is very good to brighten the mind, but sometimes you need to combine this with with dynamic exercises, dynamic yogic postures and things like that, or dynamic breathing techniques. And this is very important because if you are used with meditation techniques, very often when you want to shift a state, your natural reflex is to go into a yogic posture and stand still. But in my experience, this is already a very good start, but in my experience, if you really want to energize your body and energize your mind, you can use the couple of techniques that I mentioned earlier, like for instance having a cold shower or going for dynamic exercises or dynamic breathing techniques. Okay, we will talk more about these three states of energy: tamas, sattva, and rajas, because it's very important to understand that your energy level is something you can consciously choose or influence. You don't have to accept simply when you are low or heavy in energy. You don't have to accept this. You can really practice techniques and practice very simple things to shift your energy level. And this is the message for now. Okay, you take care. Hope this makes sense. Bye bye.